Hi, I'm Glenn Whipp with the Los Angeles Times. Amazon Studios' Goliath just was renewed for a second season. Joining us today, the lead from the show, Golden Globe winner for the show, Billy Bob Thornton. Welcome, man.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. It was just renewed for a second season. And I think always the idea was like, that would be a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was written with the idea that it could just be the one season because I was more of a holdout initially about, television and streaming and stuff like that because, I came up in the 80s as an actor, and that's back when you didn't do TV.
Right.
That was a no-no unless, when you're coming up, you do it because you take whatever you can get.
Sure.
If you got 2 lines on Knots Landing or whatever, that kind of thing, you do it. But so the whole thing with Fargo was very appealing to me because I knew that I was signed up to do basically a 10-hour independent film, on TV, and that was great. So then the idea with Goliath was that it could be that if we wanted it to be because it was a closed-ended story, But if we all liked what happened, then it was open to another season. So we talked it over, and it was successful, and we got the award for it. And it's like, okay, let's do it again, because I love playing the character.
Yeah. Well, the last image of the first season, Billy McBride, your character's walking out into the ocean.
Right.
That could have, ambiguous.
Sure.
He might not have come back.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful, bittersweet ending because even though, and the show ran, spoilers, I'm assuming most people watching this have seen the show. So, even though Billy won the case, there was still a lot of heavy stuff in his heart.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those guys who's not that far from me, really, who's not really ever completely satisfied with anything, So, yeah, it doesn't matter if you win the case or not if you got your own complications,
Yeah.
That's what the character. That's why the character was interesting to me because it didn't rely on the story for the character to be interesting.
Yeah.
It's just like when you're, let's say you're going to write a true life story about someone, whoever it is, Mickey Mantle or whoever it is, that story has to be written in a way where that character is interesting if you don't know who they are.
If you don't like baseball.
Or if you don't like baseball, exactly. And so this character was interesting enough to where the case could be the backdrop for it, and yet you still had a story anyway about this guy's life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what interested me about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you said, there's some similarities, kind of a version of you in a way. The first episode I'm watching, way years and years ago, the first time we met, you were living at the Sunset Marquis Hotel.
That's right. Sure
So
was.
I'm watching this episode, and your character's living at the Ocean Lodge there in Santa Monica. So you know about hotel living, don't you?
Sure, yeah.
Was that in the script, or was that something that you added?
No, that was in the script, yeah. But something that fit like a glove.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to tell people my standard joke was every time I get a divorce, I move back to the Sunset Marquis, which is pretty often.
So they would know when to expect you.
Oh yeah, it's like the robe was there waiting, and
right.
Dwight Yoakam used to say that he wanted to do a music video and write a song and do a music video where you just see a boot step out of a car. The door opens, you see a boot, and then you just follow the boots clicking across a marble floor, and then you hear someone say, "Welcome back, Mr. Thornton," and then you pull back, and it's me at the Sunset Marquis. So, yeah.
What's the best thing about living in a hotel? Because you did this for 6
years.
6 years, right? Yeah.
Well, back when I lived there, it was a pretty wild place. There was a lot going on, and a lot going on with me too. And I don't know. It's just you had a built-in life there. I mean, I was living in a villa, and my friends would come over there every night. A lot of them were living there too, and it was just it was a wild time, and sort of a time that was really very alive.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you had the bar down there and the restaurant, so you had a whole world there. You never had to leave it, really.
Right.
And I'm kind of a hermit, so
Yeah.
it was perfect for me. And you know, when
They'd
you're
have cleanup service in the morning, right?
absolutely, you know, you never had to do anything,
Right.
you know, except whatever you wanted to, and then go to work every now and then.
And it was nearby Tower Records, the old
It
tower
certainly was,
on
yeah.
Sunset, so you
Oh,
could
yeah.
walk over there
Sure, and book soup.
and book soup. Yeah, it's a good location if you did want to venture out of the
Absolutely.
confines.
Yeah.
It was funny because, but there are lines, there are things in this in Goliath. There's a great moment on the beach, a couple of night scenes on the beach where Billy's, you know, chasing his demons, and there's a line, Bob Gibson, greatest pitcher ever.
Right. Yeah.
That wasn't in the script. that's you.
I might have thrown a line or two in now and then.
Yeah, because you're a diehard Cardinals fan.
Yes.
And Bob Gibson, I would assume you believe that. Greatest, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he was my hero. I was a pitcher also, and that's the guy I studied. And I know Gibson a little bit. And he's and he always had the reputation of being a real hard-nosed guy, really hard to get to know. But you know, if he likes you, and if you're talking about a subject he's interested in, he's a very friendly guy.
Yeah.
You know, I've been around him a few times. You get him talking about the blues. He loves blues music, and you get him talking about that, he'll go all night.
This is a legal drama, but there's also there's also kind of a private eye sort of aspect to it too. I mean, you don't get into the courtroom into the last couple of episodes, and in some ways it reminded me of something of a throwback to like Rockford Files.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
I always thought it reminded me of Rockford in a lot of ways, and if Rockford had been a lawyer, you
Yeah.
know, and you know, a certain little element of Columbo in there because he's always kind of pestering these witness guys. You know, he's always saying, "Hey, listen, hang on a second. I thought you said, you know, whatever."
Yeah.
So, in terms of older shows, those are, you know, good references. But it also has elements of sort of you know, Chinatown even, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think this season, particularly, the Chinatown vibe is going to be more prevalent.
Really? So you know about this coming season?
Yeah.
When are you going to start shooting it? I mean,
We start shooting in June.
all right.
Yeah,
So
pretty soon.
scripts have been, outlines been made, scripts are being written, have been written.
Yes, the difference in last season and this season is that this time we have the scripts ahead of time. We didn't last time. And it's not, you know, terribly important to me as an actor to know what's gonna happen, as it is to know the history of
Yeah.
it. Like if you're not told a lot about your history, then on episode 4 or 5, all of a sudden you find out that you have like bipolar disorder or something, and you've been playing the guy as a perfectly stable guy mentally. You would have played things a lot differently.
Sure. Sure.
You know? And so you kind of need to know who you are. That's really what's important.
Who are the characters coming back for season 2?
I don't know everything yet.
Yeah. Are there characters?
I do know that Patty, you know,
Yeah.
Nina, yeah, she's coming back, and from what I understand, the character of Britney, Tanya, she's going to be back, and my daughter will be back.
She's got to be back, yeah.
So those are some that I know are coming back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because the Britney character was great. So many great characters in this first season. But that character, there was, that last episode,
Yeah.
things were not good between them, and
Right.
I was kind of worried that she wasn't going to make it to the end of the season alive.
Yeah.
Pretty much through all the episodes, I kept waiting for something bad to happen to her.
Yeah.
She seemed like a doomed character.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Yeah.
glad she's coming back because she was a great character.
Yeah, I love that character, and their relationship's really odd because it's not a sexual one.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's been sort of toyed with.
Right.
There's, he ends up with whoever he ends up with once in a while, but here he's got like this girl who's, at least a 10, and that doesn't seem to be the thing with him. And I think a lot of it's because he doesn't see himself as a guy who would be with a 10.
Mm.
No matter how much money he has or doesn't have, or what his position is, or any of that, or whatever hold he has over her, I think he's kind of at the end of the day, kind of a mess inside,
Yeah.
and not very secure.
What's also a mess on the show is that classic Mustang.
Oh yeah, no joke. Yeah,
That's the
poor
thing that
car.
kind of reminded me a little of Rockford Files, because his Firebird would always just like take a beating
Absolutely.
throughout the season.
Sure.
And this Mustang, I was trying to remember like what it looked like when this season started. I think it was in pretty good shape.
It was in decent shape. I
Yeah.
mean, it could have used a paint job for sure, but it wasn't bad until it got worked over.
Right. Well, I mean, like there's fish guts dumped on it,
Oh yeah.
on the hood, and then it gets worked over to by the end. When headlights missing.
Yeah.
It became a little bit of a character in the show too.
It's a character in the show, and guys do that. I've done it over the years. You have a car, maybe you could get another one, but there's sentimental value in it, and it also makes you feel safe. It's a place
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what the motel is for him and Shea Jay.
Mm-hmm. I thought, and the show gets there were a couple of great visual shots of everybody piling into that Mustang convertible going downtown. It just kind of emphasized the ragtag group going up against the corporate button down, the corporation. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was. They didn't have a lot in terms of resources. That group, yeah.
How much input did you have? Like Dwight Yoakam's in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Was that your suggestion? Because you've worked with him a lot. You guys are friends.
Absolutely. Well, I was asked, about it. One of the producer writers asked me, Jonathan Shapiro. He said, "We think Dwight. You think we could, work something out there?" And I said, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
So I called Dwight and I said, "Dude, you got to do this." And I liked seeing Dwight in a part like that, where he's playing a big corporate guy,
Yeah.
as opposed to, a bad guy or a killer or a cowboy or something like that. It's always good for him to do that, I thought he fit right into it. It seemed very natural to me.
Yeah, it was fun. He had some really nice scenes in it.
Yeah.
And you guys had a great scene together at the end.
Right, sure, yeah.
As you did with William Hurt. It kind of the show builds a little bit to the final confrontation. There's one in the courtroom, and there's one in the hospital. What was that scene like in the hospital? Because that was a hell of a scene.
Yeah, that scene was, the great thing about William Hurt is he's a terrific actor, and whatever the vibe of the scene is supposed to be, whatever the mood is, and this is always a mark of a really terrific actor, when you walk in the room to do the scene, it's there. The mood is there. You know what he thinks about you. He knows what I think about him. you know, as the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not a lot of, you don't have to pretend,
Right.
you know. And he and I both have our, you know, quirks naturally as people. And I think those come through, you know, when we're with each other in the scene. Yeah, he's terrific.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, he will not be, I assume, not be returning for season 2.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, that case is
That case is done.
Yeah.
Your character in Billy, he's watched Hoosiers 300 times, by his estimate.
Right.
That's his go-to movie.
That's right.
Do you have a go-to movie?
Hoosiers.
That's
Yeah.
So that was another thing that came.
Hoosiers and High Noon.
Mm-hmm.
The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts. I got a few that I can watch anytime.
Yeah.
And Being There,
Mm-hmm.
The Verdict,
Mm-hmm.
movies like that. And Giant. I like to watch Giant.
I just watched that earlier this year. Yeah.
Love watching
So you
that
can
movie.
dive into that world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my.
You mentioned The Verdict. Were there more references to The Verdict earlier on? I read an interview where, at least certainly the character of
Yeah.
Billy is very reminiscent of the Paul Newman character in The Verdict.
I think that was the idea in the beginning.
Yeah.
But as with anything, you know, The Verdict was a 2-hour movie, and here you've got to fill up all these episodes, you know. So in other words, you can't sort of milk that forever,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
You-
you gotta-
that's a you don't want to keep telling the same joke, and so yeah, the setup is the same.
Mm-hmm.
He's that kind of guy. He's a guy who's down and out, wants to claw his way back, and beyond that, they kind of part ways.
Mm-hmm. Have you spent much time over the years in Shea Jay?
I have actually. I went there back in the '80s, you know, and '90s, and
Yeah.
yeah. I used to hang out there with a couple of my pals. Back when I was more of a drinker,
Mm-hmm.
especially, I'd go there because it was a good bar to be at, you know. And these days I'm a lightweight. I drink one light beer and I feel like I have a sinus headache and need to go to sleep. But it's a fun place to hang out.
Yeah. Yeah, that and the Ocean Lodge. They're like these two spots that are kind of old Santa Monica,
Right.
surrounded by, 21st century Santa Monica.
Absolutely.
I read where, it was interesting, I read where David E. Kelley, co-creator of the show, met his wife at Shea Jay.
Oh wow, I didn't even
Did you
know
know that?
that.
Yeah. He met Michelle Pfeiffer there. That's why he said it there.
Wow.
You have to ask him about
Yeah, I had no idea.
that. The other thing that I was kind of wondering about was, you played a lawyer once before, but here, I mean, you gotta throw out a lot of legal. Did you do much research for this, just so the words, you weren't just saying words? What did you do for all these law scenes?
Well, we were fortunate enough to have Jonathan Shapiro, who was the co-writer,
Yeah.
creator of the thing, and he is a lawyer. So
I did not know that.
So when he was on the set, it was easy enough to ask him, you know what, I know what this means, but what is this specific word? Why is that in there? And he'd tell you right away, you know. So that was a good thing. And yeah, you're right. If you're doing something where you have to spout out a bunch of technical dialogue or legalese or whatever it is, you know. Like when I was doing Pushing 10 about an air traffic controller, I went to air traffic control school up in Toronto. Because if you don't know what that stuff is, you just sound like you're listing stuff. And I think, and audiences aren't stupid, they know that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we knew what the stuff meant. And I had played the lawyer and the judge.
Right.
And we had a really good technical advisor on that, Pamela Wexler, and she was always really handy at telling me about lawyers and what they do, and you know, it's actors and lawyers are a lot alike.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. I mean, we do kind of the same thing. We're trying to convince an audience, they're trying to convince a jury. So
Making persuasive cases.
Absolutely.
Sometimes more successfully than others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been asking everybody who comes in, same set of questions, so I'm going to throw these out for you. I know probably most of your TV watching is maybe St. Louis Cardinals related.
Yes.
But what was the last, is there a last show that you binge watched on TV? Because that's the thing now, just going through a whole...
You know, I've never really done that. I mainly watch sports, and I watch the news as long as I can stand it.
What about with your daughter? You've got a, is she 12?
Oh, yeah, she's 12. She's going to be 13 in September, and we watch a lot of the Equestria Girls, which is a spin-off of My Little Pony for
Really?
older girls.
Okay.
Yeah. So we watch a lot of that.
So you've binge watched that?
You know what? You're right. The last thing I binge watched was Equestria Girls.
Yeah.
And I think the new season of My Little Pony is coming up here, so I'll be watching that. Those stories are pretty heavy sometimes. I mean, once you get into it, it's like anything. I mean, like, you know, people will say, oh, I've never watched a soap opera. But I remember back in the 80s, I was sick, and while I was kind of laying around with nothing to do, I started watching a couple of soap operas, and I got hooked on them. Because
Yeah.
I think it's in our nature, if you start watching something, you want to know what the hell happens.
You want a resolution. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I wanted to know about Billy Clyde and all that at the time, and Luke and Laura and all that stuff, you know.
And this was before DVRs. You couldn't record.
No,
anything.
you had to watch it.
So were you rearranging your day to watch?
Well, no, because I was laying around anyway.
So you didn't really have to do that.
I was unemployed a
Yeah.
lot in the 80s, so I had
you-
plenty of time to
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah, your schedule was sort of, you know, open enough to where you could do that.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. If you could go back and be on any classic television show, what would you choose?
Ever or
Ever.
once I became an actor, what
No,
was on past
You
then?
you can now go back in time.
Well, let's see. I think I would have liked to have been on Columbo as the guy Columbo thought did it in the beginning, and what the audience maybe thought. Well, of course, in Columbo, you knew
Right.
because they showed it. I mean, the opening scene was you saw the murder.
Yeah, that's
you know,
right.
And if you ever noticed, the murder weapon on those shows a lot of times looked like an award. There's always something on the mantle, you know, some big heavy thing
Yeah.
to knock them in the head with. But
Does that mean you keep your Oscars like in a safe place, maybe
yeah, I
locked
lock
away?
them up.
Yeah, because you don't know
Never
what could
know,
happen, right?
you know. But maybe that. I'd say maybe All in the Family. I would
And
like
what
to
role? In as Archie
Uh,
or Meathead?
maybe Meathead. I think I would have liked playing
Yeah.
Meathead.
Yeah.
You know, just being frustrated with Archie every
Yeah.
minute, and sort of knowing that you're kind of like. I'm like that anyway. I don't like to stay at other people's houses. I'm always really aware of stuff. I remember I was staying at Johnny Cash's house one time, years ago, and he said, "Yeah, you ought to just stay for a week," and all this kind of stuff. And I got, you know, a rash thinking about it, because I thought, I mean, I'm going to be like in the refrigerator at 2 in the morning, and then Johnny Cash comes in the room. You know,
Yeah.
that's nerve-wracking. Sees me like going through his pie and stuff. You know, I don't know. I don't dig that stuff. So being Meathead, and knowing that Archie just loathes him living there, you know, I think that would be an interesting part to play.
Was this Johnny Cash's house in Tennessee?
Tennessee, yeah.
So did you end up staying there?
I mean, just for the one.
For the one, but not for an extended
no,
stay.
No, yeah. I mean, I went out there a few times, but he was one of those guys that I never got over being nervous around. I mean, a lot of guys. Willie Nelson and I are pretty close, and I know Christopherson, and I knew Waylon. All those four, you know,
Mount Rushmore guys.
The Mount Rushmore guys, and I know them all. And but Cash was the one that I couldn't get over thinking every minute when you're hanging out with him. And he was real loose with me, and so was June. But you know, it's like he would be talking to me about just regular stuff, about growing cabbage or whatever, you know. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, that's Johnny Cash. Wow.
Maybe it's the voice. Maybe it was
he did have that voice. Yeah.
Well, Billy.
Yeah, son, you know.
The cabbage is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the voice of God, like.
It kind of is.
Even in the most pedestrian of situations.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first acting job, first paid acting job? You mentioned 2 lines on Knots Landing.
I had more than a couple of lines, but I was on Knots Landing. I had one scene on Knots Landing, one scene on Matlock.
Yeah.
I did a show before Matlock. Remember when they used to have all these court shows that weren't reality? They were like, you know, like divorce court, and they had one called The Judge and one called Superior Court.
Right.
They were all based on real cases, but they were actors. They were dramatizations, and I did one of those called The Judge. I remember, Courtney Gaines. Remember Courtney Gaines, a redheaded actor? He was in the Burbs and stuff like that. Yeah, he played my little brother, and we were hillbilly kidnappers. That was one of my early.
So you were the defendants.
Yes, we were absolutely the defendants. Yes. Yeah. Beth Grant was the mother of the girl. I remember that, and Beth's still a friend of mine to this day. And weird kind of shows, you know.
I want some closure of what happened with the case. Did you guys get sent to jail?
I don't remember
that far.
Anything. No. I think I went for. You know what? I went for the bailiff's gun. So it couldn't have ended well. Yeah, but a lot of those things I don't remember very well. You know?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there's a season 2 of Goliath. I'm looking forward to that. Is that going to probably come at around the same time as season 1?
I don't know, because we shoot all the way well into November.
Oh, well, then it's probably going to be a little later.
It might be. I mean, I can't imagine. Maybe they want to put it out before Christmas. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to wait till after the first year, because, you know, I don't understand how all this stuff works. I never have, you know. But they have people that sit around and figure stuff out. And
I'll wait for the email from Amazon Prime to tell me.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's in my. It's in my queue. So.
Those things are handy, aren't they? Those Amazon, we got them all over the house. Alexa, Echo, whatever. Yeah.
Are you an Amazon Prime user?
Oh yeah, definitely. And we order our groceries from Amazon.
Okay. Do you get like a free Prime membership if you're on one of their shows? No. It isn't.
No, I didn't get that. But I did get the thing, one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave me one of those as a gift. Yeah.
Okay.
Which, that's pretty nice. And then we bought a couple of other ones. But I mean, you know, if you're sitting around, and it's like, you know, when was Babe Ruth born? It's pretty nice. You know, you just ask her.
Ask the question and
ask Alexa.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things in our house that evidently sound like Alexa, though, because every now and then she answers us when we didn't ask her anything.
That's kind of spooky.
It is.
It's a little spooky.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came in today. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
All right. And for more of these conversations, please go to latimes.com. Thank you for watching.